Hello and good evening. Welcome to the Ward 5 NPA. It is Thursday, February 19th. We are here for a very exciting meeting. Lots to discuss tonight. My name is Elena. I use they, them pronouns. I'm going to moderate this evening. Other folks on the steering committee, do you have a wave and introduce yourselves?
As Jack together.
Jason Van Drysch.
Reed just walked out, but he's also on the steering committee and provided us with some wonderful food. Please go get some if you haven't already. We are going to open with public forum. You are welcome to share whatever's on your mind relevant to this neighborhood or the world right now. We've got 10 to 15 minutes for this, and we're going to keep having a discussion right after that about our priorities as an NPA and as a neighborhood. So if you've got thoughts, you can hold them for that section. But public forum, make an announcement, all that stuff is great. After public forum, we will talk about those priorities, then hear about the school budget and some work going on in the schools to keep folks safe amid escalating federal aggression. And then we're going to hear about Proposition 0, which Fareed and a couple others are going to share about, which may get on the ballot in November. That's what we've got for today. Anyone for public forum? Yes, Jason.
I'm Jason Van Drysch. I live, and I just want to give folks an update on one of the major items on the agenda at our last meeting, which was a Parks Department proposal for a section of bike path in Callahan Park, where the proposed design for the path would take out several large trees in the park around the playground. And I've been checking in regularly with Phil Lewis, the new director of the Parks Department, about this. And he confirmed for me that staff working with their consultants for the project have figured out how to redesign the project to not take down the large and significant budget implications of the change design. And they've submitted that change design to the state-funded project. So it's not a done deal yet, but Phil said he can't imagine any reason why the state would say no. That the engagement NPA meeting on the made a real difference, and they're going to build the path, but leave the trees, which is lovely.
Congratulations. That's a win.
A tiny but great win.
I'm gonna start calling you Lorax.
Thank you, folks, for public forum. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lucia Gabriello. I'm on the corner of Pine and Lyman. So currently your Ward 5 school board rep, and I am running unopposed this year on town meeting day. If you maybe have your ballots at home, you've seen my name. If not, you'll have the opportunity to cast your support my way, which I'm here to. So I hope you'll consider supporting me in what would be my third term serving on school board. It is work that I care a lot about and I'm really proud to be a part of. So,
Anyone just talking to the mic for the folks online?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm Sarah. I don't live in a question I've always been curious about. If someone's running unopposed, we vote to show you our support.
I mean, it hurts our feelings if we don't.
No, we don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but
You can,
yes.
Which is an option.
Mhm.
If you feel like that. Yes.
Thanks.
And I would put that it's really important you have interest in serving on top of me. I am running unopposed, so it likely will be my role for the night, helping for multiple people to put it out in the ring. It's really looking forward.
There's also a count of all of the individual counts of the individual people running for different positions. So, for example, if someone's running unopposed, and you for them will show up in difference between the ballots that are counted and the votes that are cast.
Oh, interesting. Oh,
So really, yeah, so voting who you support, who is unopposed still matters because it demonstrates that support.
so it reaches some official point.
Oh, very much so.
Yeah, yeah. I had understood that maybe at this meeting, we were going to be talking about how to pre-organize if there was ice problems in Burlington. Did I mix that up?
Yes, there's after the presentation about the school budget, there'll be a presentation from Victor here, who's the Director of Engagement for the school district, about planning that the school district is doing around that, and then an open discussion on the community role in helping schools stay safe with the it's kind of the foundation and the starting point.
Thank you. That's great.
Anyone else for public forum before we shift gears?
Oops.
Hello, my name is Jack Tiano. I live here. Currently in the I want to talk about transit funding. The transit funding landscape in Vermont is pretty consistently not given the full attention that it needs, and the GMT has been cutting routes over the past few years and stands to cut a few more. The way I understand it, as of right now, this current is not going to be catastrophic, but it's kind of going either way. Next year is less certain, and there's a possibility, depending on our level, that they could be looking at severe budget cuts that would require pretty significant reductions in service. I think that that's unacceptable for a number of reasons. And I think one of the reasons that is not given enough attention is that we do not have a valid path forward on housing and economic growth in Burlington and Chittenden County without a functioning and at the very least functioning, if not expanded, public transit system. Something that I think a lot of people don't understand about public transit is that it takes a really long time to build up ridership. But when they have to make serious long-term choices about how they restructure their life around those changes, and they do not come back when service is restored. So we're kind of looking ahead at the possibility of what experts call a death spiral, where lack of funding reduces ridership, which reduces subsidy, which reduces service, which reduces ridership, until we hit this bottom of the barrel situation where we have a basically non-functioning transit system at the same time that we're expected to build 30 to 40,000 new units of housing in Vermont over the next 25 years. With, if you think that driving in Burlington and in South Burlington and in neighboring areas is unenjoyable now, it will get a lot worse, and then it will stall our housing growth, and it will not allow us to kind of continue growing economically in the way that we need. So that's just kind of a pitch. There's a couple thing funding that don't add new taxes that would allow municipalities to add a local options tax or find some creative ways around it. None of these are certain, but the one thing that you can do is email your legislator, both legislators, or talk to your legislator who's in the room, both on the House and the Senate, and just let them know that we need to make transit funding a priority that gets done both this session, at least in a short-term way, and then in the next biennium in a very serious way, in a long-term way. And I know that the governor doesn't want to pass new taxes, and that's a real barrier, but we have to do something, or else this is like a long-term, like, transportation is something that plays out over decades. And if we don't take this seriously now, all of the other work we're doing to turn things around economically and growth-wise in Vermont are going to probably stall in a really unfortunate way. So that's just kind of my spiel on transit funding. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Yes.
My name is Dave Foss. I live here in this Ward 2. And I want to comment back up what Jax is talking about. I tend to go to the airport quite often. And because of recent cuts and things, there aren't any direct routes by the bus to the airport. And that's a problem for local folks and folks visiting Burlington and elsewhere. Used to be able to pick up a bus right there and go downtown or whatever. That stop is not available. But a lot of times you take the bus, you have to walk from Williston Road basically to the airport or another way around it. They transferred the bus route more into South Burlington itself over off Marketplace and the main central area of South Burlington, and anything west of or north of Williston Road is basically left uncovered right now. And I think we want to bring people here and show them around. You would think there'd be some decent transportation from the airport elsewhere. And I mean, I've paid anywhere from $25 to $40 from the airport to downtown via taxi. And that's wrong.
My name is Scott Lowe. I'm a resident of Ward 5. And I had a question regarding that. Is this something that GMT is looking at cutting back just in Chittenden County? Because I know that they operate in more rural communities, going out towards Richmond, all the way out to Waterbury, Montpelier, and points east. And I know that they have connection services to other transit authorities such as Tri-Valley Transit and so forth, River RCT. So is this something that they're looking at just with regards to Chittenden County or Burlington, or is this something overall?
Transit funding overall in the state is in need of like doing a little better than the others, but nationwide, it's a challenge right now. And so it's not just GMT, it's not just Burlington, but to us, that's how it manifests for us locally. So I think if you're gonna write your legislator, just the idea is we need to take transit seriously in Vermont. And that naturally ends up focusing on denser areas where transit plays a more important role for more people. But
Okay, a conversation about our priorities as a ward. I'll explain what this is in a moment, but I want to just mention, usually our February NPA is very focused on the election. And because we have, I think, only uncontested folks running in Ward 5, and we had a big conversation at our last month's meeting about some of the ballot items, we are not really talking about the upcoming election this evening. I know we're going to hear something about what's on the back of the ballot. But town meeting day is on Tuesday, March 3rd, first Tuesday in March. You should have gotten a ballot. So get in touch with the city clerk. You can still register to vote if you have not up until the day and including on the day of the election. So that's coming up. And then another election, which is kind of a different election, is for the NPA steering committee, which is what we are on. And a handful of folks are stepping off of the steering committee. Please think about if this is a like play and get in touch with us. And we want to talk to you about it. Tell your friends if you have neighbor elections going to be at our meeting. So not the next one, but the one after that.
Want to get involved.
They want to get more involved. Okay, we're gonna talk about our priorities as a neighborhood. So we heard a couple of times about a recently passed ordinance. Ordinance? Maybe? No, it's not an ordinance. it's a resolution passed by the city council about the NPAs. And the process to craft that resolution happened with NPA steering committee members and the city council. And it basically outlines the kind of relationship these two entities have with each other. What the part of that we're going to talk about this evening is that the steering committee members who helped craft this resolution asked for an opportunity to tell our city councilors what we think is important as a neighborhood on an annual basis, so that they can know when we are going to want them to be here or do something else in service of the community, understanding what's going on. So these don't have to be all of the issues that are important to all of us in this room. They don't have to be the three things that take precedence over everything else. But we're going to spend really just 10 minutes talking about what's important to us as a ward. And if there are specific, we want to hear from our city councilors about in these meetings. So I'm going to try to take notes as folks are talking, what is getting discussed. And if we have way more than three, we may need to ask for your blessing to narrow it down so we can, but I would love to hear from people about what you consider a priority and how you would like to get cool. All right. What do you think? What are our priorities?
Let's start with what are your priorities, and then we can talk about it. Silent meditation seems to be a top priority.
We could all use a little more of that right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Have put at the top of my list is the uncertainty with regards to property taxes. I guess they're reviewing options of shifting property tax burdens and reducing some property taxes, property taxes for commercial properties, property management companies, so forth. They've set a value limit as to where they want to start making these changes should this pass. So that's a priority on my agenda.
Great. And am I understanding that your requested follow-up is more information on this on a more regular basis, or do you want something else to ask for something else specific from the council?
Specifically ask for why there's this feeling that shifting the tax burden would be more beneficial to the residents of Burlington, both those that own properties and those that rent properties.
Gotcha. What else is coming up for people you want to hear from the council about? Here. Yes.
Also related to taxes. I would love to see Burlington focus on more taxation of things we don't want and less taxation of things we do. And I'll give a couple of examples. Surface parking lots, particularly in the colossal waste of land, and they should be taxed through the stratosphere, so as to create an incentive to develop them, and something that adds value, more value for the community, and generates more taxes for our city. I'm thinking of lots of different places, but a prime example is that parking lot right on the corner of City Hall, where the big Hummingbird is, there is absolutely no reason why that's been a parking lot since I moved to Burlington 17 years. So that should be an 8-story building. And there's a fair number of spots like that around the city, and it should be extraordinarily expensive to keep a surface parking lot down, which is underutilized. Another example of something that I think we could do less of, and I don't know if the city has an opportunity to target a tax. Plenty of cannabis shops in Burlington. I wouldn't mind if they were taxed a little more heavily, because we certainly don't need any more of them. And I'm sure there's other things as well, but it's just really hard to see a taxation system that basically focuses on, people's homes and local commerce and so on and so forth. And there's got to be at least a few opportunities to shift taxes to.
Do you want to say anything specific about your requested follow-up? Any other issues? What else is coming to people's minds? Yeah, go ahead.
We touched on a little bit tonight, but I think Burlington needs to develop a better transfer, a little bit on helping the bikes a little bit more, but seeing that get there's a lot of people that need transportation to things. Again, from the airport, we want to service people coming into town, but should be more buses available to transport people to work or feel safe about that. Gas has gone down, which is encouraging more people to buy cars, use cars more. So people, I don't know, they're getting a little bit more selfish or something. I don't know. Cars are great, but for our area, our county, and our city and stuff, we do need a better transportation plan. Figure out, come up with a plan. I don't know, find another alternative for bus services, or I don't know, but we got to there's a lot of seniors that are, some of the SSTA price charge for trips, in the past, they've been able to take trips to the grocery store for $4 each way. And a lot of people don't have that disposable income and things. So better alternatives, especially if we start losing SSTA more, and GM has got to figure a way, a balance to bring us the routes. And make that viable for everybody. Thank you.
Any other priorities we'd want to list? We shift to our next topic. Yes.
I'm going to be really general because I didn't do my research for this, but for unhoused people, expansion of the voucher programs, and just intensive activity in every district. I think that's a general.
Agree.
All right, any last things we want to add?
I just want to, something that I'm identifying here and a way that I've kind of framed this in other contexts is a lot of these, in a way, feel like, how are we going to manage growth as a city? I think for a long time, we've been focusing on keeping things as they are and being really defensive about protecting them. And that has largely resulted in a lot of the problems that we're facing because we have a scarcity of the things that people need to live a good life. And so as we think about how do we better balance property taxes? How do we do better transportation planning? How do we consider housing for people of all incomes and needs? And specifically the people who are in most need of all of these things. The best way to do that is to have a really solid plan for growth overall that can adapt. And I think that to kind of tie some of these to a requested follow-up, there is in process right now a Plan BTV 2050 kind of long-term cohesive, unified, comprehensive plan, which I would like to see more transparency on. I don't necessarily want people to just have their fingers in it like all the time. Like it needs to get done and we need to be able to like see progress, but this started like several months ago at this point and I haven't seen much come at it. And I'd like to see more engagement from our city councilors too, since city staff have a lot of work to do, but I would like to see city councilors kind of plug in with that and be a better bridge between the residents and the city and be able to like communicate and translate between what we want to see and to be able to communicate to us what the trade-offs are. I think that's something that's often missed out on. So how do we grow well, and how does the city council play a role as a mediator between that long-term plan and the residents through the NPA?
Nice. Thank you. Yes. One last
Am I
thing.
supposed to come to a
Yeah,
microphone?
it's good for the people online.
Good for the people?
I've been thinking a lot about, oh, yeah. Jamie Contois, I live, am I supposed to like in this area? I can be vague. I live close. I am kind of a new transplant. I've been here for a couple of years, though my family's been here for much, much longer. And I am paying attention to the intersection of affordable housing, childcare, and healthcare. And I've been thinking a lot about what are some of the ways we can continue to, I just ate and I'm gonna burp on. How can we support communication that looks at the intersection of the core things that working families need in our community? And the other thing that struck me, I went to my first city council meeting in a while, but as a transplant from, I've been politically active in New Hampshire. I'm always fascinated by the Democrat progressive energy in Burlington because I feel like we're all going to be in the same jail cell at the end of the day. And so I feel like we don't understand the battles that we need to pick. And I'm saying that from ignorance. So anybody who knows better, you can correct me later. But I think the part that makes me curious is how do we keep creating conversations where we humanize each other and create skills within the community where we're constantly looking for ways to bridge gaps that have either accidentally or intentionally been created as a way to build up our own resilience at the community level for what is coming. Because right now we're looking at each other and we should be looking someplace else.
Right. Lots of priorities. I think that this can be organized in such a way that that our counselors will accept it. Even though it's not three specific things, it's close enough, and that's good. We're gonna. That was the request. I believe that's what's written in the resolution about the relationship between the city council and NPAs. But
It is good to prioritize.
we can count lots of things in lots of ways. Sorry, Charlie. Okay. I'm gonna shift us over to respect folks' time. We are gonna hear from Lucia and then from Victor about the school budget and what's going on in the schools. And I'll hand it over to you. And as you know, there will be questions, so expect them. But the floor is yours.
Thank you. I am going to, if I find your visual that I share, it's not my favorite while talking. I also want to introduce Vice Chair of the board, Jeff Wick. My colleague of the last several years has served 2 more terms than I have at least. So long-standing commissioner representing the South District. So we work together in a bunch of different ways, and it's This is wonderful win in this conversation.
Lucia, maybe pull that mic a little closer.
Yes, we moved my little closer. And I can't figure out where the thing that I'm trying to share is. Sadly, but. Yeah, and that would be amazing, and I will stop sharing. We have a few handouts as well. I don't have enough for everybody, which is why the electronic version will be useful. And it is also on the district's website. And we should have everything we need eventually. And once that's up, we'll go right ahead. Sweet. So, Jack, I'm gonna just pull on sort of the thread that you just start spinning what we need to grow successfully, because I firmly believe that investing in children is a central figure of a healthy community. And this budget represents hopefully a plan that you all will support from town meeting day. If we don't have a healthy public school system, we don't have a healthy community. I fully appreciate, as a taxpayer myself, and all of your commissioners fully appreciate the financial implications of our spending in our public schools. And Jeff and I will walk you through how we arrived at this number and why we feel confident in the cost containment that we are aspiring to do and do in this budget, alongside the goal of the public education system, which is to provide for all our children. So each year, I think I said this, but each year the goal is to be extremely careful with every single budget, while also, again, continuing to provide excellent schools for our students. School budget supports a myriad of services, obviously classroom learning. It supports social and emotional supports, arts and music, athletics, after school and summer programs that a lot of families rely on. And we knew going into this budget season that keeping services level funded would necessitate at least a 5% increase to the budget, simply because of cost factors that are increasing and are largely outside of the hands of the district leadership, as well as the school commissioner. And for those of you who are working or part of an organization or connected with any organization, you might know that I'm talking about healthcare. And so this year, healthcare costs alone in our school district rose about 8%, which I think is on the second chart as you scroll down. All to say, there are increasing costs happening inside of our budget due to things like healthcare increases, wage increases, which, by the way, are incredibly important. Our teachers, our educators, our staff are the majority of our budget, and without them, we don't have a district. So we're really proud of the multi-year contracts that we've established as a district. And yet, when the majority of your budget is personnel costs, those are obviously drivers of cost increases. Let's see, touch on a couple other. Yeah, we have a few federal revenue reductions as well that we needed to close in this budget. And then another interesting component that Burlington is facing, as well as many districts across the state, is that we have this declining enrollment situation happening. So every year consistently for the last handful of years, we've experienced a declining student enrollment, which means that we decrease the number of educators in our school system accordingly. And even still, we were facing some pretty significant increased costs. So all that to say that what you all voted on in this past year, the funding of of our current school budget rather is $134.7 million. This proposed budget is a $6 million increase. And what you'll see on your ballot is a vote for $140.8 million with a total percent increase of 4.47 with a tax impact of 7. I see this always over because that was just a lot of numbers. So let me just slow down. $6 million increase over last year's budget, expected to yield a 4.7% in tax impact for property owners, which you'll see reflected in the second chart. And one of the caveats that I think is always important to mention in this is that
it doesn't translate exactly to a 4.7% increase on what you pay today, because we've got a municipal circumstance that we blend together, and those numbers kind of combine. Tax experience. And we obviously can. I want to invite Commissioner Wick into the conversation, because I feel like I've just thrown a lot of numbers out there, and you do such a beautiful job cleaning it up and making it make sense.
Well, thank you, Lucia. That was much better than I could have done. I'm sort of big picture. You know, big picture over the last 10 years since I've been on the school board. You know, thank God we get a relatively clean audit, quite clean. And we run modest surpluses each year. The increases in our budget each year are relatively modest. And for example, you might remember, due to some state level stuff, our tax bill, the education portion of our tax bills last year went down 4 or 5%, which was the first time as a 20+ year homeowner in Burlington I've ever seen taxes go down. So this year they're going up a tad, but interestingly, we hope just a tad. But interesting to me is, you know how many of you supported, because it passed, $165 million bond, which might have been the biggest bond the city of Burlington has ever passed to build a high school. Thank you. We didn't, as you might know, we didn't spend all that. We ended up needing 159 million. So $6 million. I'm not going to say under budget, but I think we're on budget. But in any event, how the money flowed, we didn't need to use all that bonding. So that's good news, I think. But interesting to me, speaking of the high school and the bonding, the amount we pay, our mortgage on that bond, our monthly mortgage, is a substantial portion of our budget. It's over $10 million. I think the number's in here somewhere, but it might be 13.5 million. It turns out if we hadn't had to build that new high school at a total cost of 200 million, the numbers would be that our projected tax increase this year would be another decrease by about 5%, instead, like last year, instead of an increase. So interestingly enough, the increase, one could say, is all attributable to the fact that we have to build a new high school. But the high school is going to be great. I took a tour. Probably some of you have taken a tour. I saw your daughter, Bram, take a tour as part of the high school's register. And it's a gorgeous school. It's, you know, it's just going to be a wonderful facility for the community. I heard, and maybe Victor over here can confirm, rumor has it that the BHS graduation is going to happen in the auditorium, is it?
In the gym,
In the gym, okay.
massive gym.
Yeah, and the auditorium is beautiful too. Not beautiful as in like ostentatious, like. We won't talk about that, but like.
What, no gold toilets?
Exactly, not like that, but like just a solid facility. With new and safe materials and, you know, built energy efficient and just very thoughtful too. Lots of natural light. I'm just so excited about it. So thank you all for supporting our city's students and our educators. You know, I mean, one of the things I've been proud about over the last 10 years, I joined the board at about the time our teachers struck. You know, because they were not pleased about that. But I think we've treated our teachers and other paid folks, staff, very well, reasonable. We believe, you know, within our means as a city, you want to have teachers who can afford to raise their own families and make their own choices. Like education, public education, I'm sure everyone in here agrees with me about the importance of public education and doing it right. So just thank you, everybody. This is will be my 10th year starting April 1 on the board, and it's been very a pleasure to see. I just can't say how much I like Tom Flanagan, our superintendent, and of course Victor over here has been a steady Eddie over there. Also Nathan Lavery, our CFO. He's really helped guide the district to lots of financial controls and good financial management. So general, I think we're doing well. Yeah, so that's all I'm saying, yeah.
Hi, my name's Andy Simon. I live on Locust Street. I noticed, Jeff, when you were doing, I really appreciate all of the work that you've done for this district. And I'm voting yes on item number 4 to give you a stipend. I have no idea how much that is, but here's my question.
23 cents an hour.
You deserve every penny of it. I noticed your gesture of the state level stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to know how this is impacted by this.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, you have so much more experience because you were on the board while this advocacy work was happening, but the Burlington School Board was instrumental in partnership with several other school boards across the state at helping to pass Act 127. Yeah. A lot of similar numbers in a lot of education bills recently. 147 pages is how long Act 73 is, as an example. It's just all the same numbers, a little bit different. Anyway, that was the equitable pupil weighting bill, which meant that districts received a amount of money per student based on the characteristics of that student. Until that point in time, Burlington, as an example, was severely underfunded based on the demographics of our district. And so when that bill moved into place and really only was implemented, I think last year was the first year that we began to experience the financial implications of that work, leading to a decrease. That is really significant for us. It's the first time that we were equitably funded to be able to deliver the services that we want to deliver to ensure quality education. The conversation right now around education reform, while I think many in the room agree, if not all, agree that something needs to be done because we do have a affordability crisis, I think, happening across the state. It's the how of it that is really challenging. And I appreciate the work of the legislators in Montpelier to navigate this challenge because it's incredibly complex. So the state stuff really refers to decisions around governance, decisions around funding, decisions around whether or not the state funds infrastructure for schools, which Jeff described nicely and you see in our budget. So all of the political activity happening in Montpelier will have an impact here in Burlington, which is why Superintendent Flanagan and the team and your school commissioners have been actively advocating and remaining in close touch with sort of the moving parts and pieces, of which there are many right now. And I'm sure Brent can add some context to that as well.
Well, I was thinking even simpler when I mentioned state stuff, because way back when, 20 plus years ago, if Burlington School District raised its budget by 5%, our tax bills would go up by 5%. So that was, basic until this case called Brigham, which said, no, that's not equitable funding. Essentially, the legislature then came up with this very complex math where we do our own budgets and then, send that information to Montpelier. And then there are various formulae and stuff. And then they let us know what the tax impact is. So the tax impact is unpredictable as of right now, but based on the factors, the 4 factors that we know, and don't put me on the spot about that, but the way I like to think of it is, I like to figure out, okay, well, how much is Burlington raising its budget? Actually, dollar, if it's 100 million last year and 105 million this year, it's 5% increase. Okay, well, after the state stuff, what's our tax increase going to be? And so it might be 6%. So if we are increasing our budget by 5%, but we're getting taxed 6%, well, that 1% difference means we're effectively funding other towns to make sure it's equitable for their system as well.
2 questions. One, do you know off the top of your heads what portion of the 140.8 million is health insurance costs?
Health insurance, what portion? How much is our health insurance annually? I don't know, and I apologize. Maybe Lucia can find it. That is a question that we board members at our meetings would typically ask Nate, say,
Yeah.
Hey, how much is health insurance? He's got his computer. He's like, it's this much. So
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't exactly know.
No, it's fine. I'm curious because I remember when the Shumlin administration put forth a proposal for single payer universal health care in Vermont, I believe the proposal was for an 11% payroll tax to fund it. So I'd be curious if the cost of healthcare is above or below 11%. I mean, obviously a lot has changed since Shumlin and healthcare has gotten crazy more expensive, but it'd be interesting to see if we're paying more now than we would have paid if we'd gone in on a universal healthcare system.
Yeah, we could rough cut it. Say 80% of the budget is people. So that's 112 million is people, say 30% of that is benefits. So 35 million.
And probably most of that is healthcare, some retirement, et cetera. So
Yeah,
probably in excess of $20 million is healthcare. Yep. So that would be
very rough estimate.
That would be more than the 11% that was such a sticker shock back then. That's interesting. Second question.
People are doing really poor job tonight.
I'm right here.
Well,
Second question, I saw a map that I believe Representative Peter Conlon put out, chair of the House Education Committee, of a proposal for consolidating school districts. And it was a 20 or 30 school districts. And, on a very superficial, don't know the details level, it kind of looked like it made sense, except for one glaringly bizarre thing, which was that all of Addison County plus Burlington were a school district in that map. Is that a mistake, like a typo in that map, or was that actually the intention? I looked at it 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating, and that's what the map said.
Yeah, I have not looked at that map, and I have not talked to Peter about it, so I have no idea.
Okay, just flagging that. I looked at it and I was like, what?
Yeah, I saw that.
That makes no sense. So, bug in your ear.
Yeah, no, I'm say it. I don't have much to lose here. I'm personally against Burlington consolidating into any giant district where we lose all local control and.
Yep. There were a number of districts proposed on that map that were smaller than Burlington as is now. So it really, I was like leaning 2 to 1 that it was just some really ginormous typo in the map because it made 0 sense.
Yeah. It's all politics and, that committee that was doing that, as at the end of the year, it's pretty old news, but at the end of their term, it's like, look, we're not even gonna give something that we're supposed to give, our report. We're gonna say it should be more voluntary. And as you know, the governor didn't like that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how things go.
Yeah. Anyhow, that's all I got. Thank you.
Hi, Lucia. How are you?
Hi, Amy.
I'm doing a good job on the microphone.
Gold star.
I have been in a number of meetings in different places around the state where I hear the budget cost is impacted by the rising cost of healthcare. Boy, I wish we could do something about it, but we can't. And I'm curious where the coalition is that exists across sectors within the state of Vermont that recognizes the collective need across public and private spending to address the rising cost of healthcare and adds 2 hours a week of somebody's staff time in every organization in the state of Vermont to address it. Because the thought that when I go to, we've got a couple of kids in the local schools, and when I recognize that we're losing staff because the budget is going up, but a disproportionate amount is going to healthcare, and then we can't have the kinds of people we need in the building. And no fault of the folks in the building who know the kinds of staff that are needed for the success of the students, but you can't bleed a stone. So the question to me is, how do we collectively as leaders within the state of Vermont start holding every single one of our institutions accountable to do the real critical work of not saying we can't do anything about it anymore, and know that we actually can. We're amazingly resourceful. And the sad truth is, when I've looked at the numbers, and maybe you who all went through that fight on single payer, it always has seemed, because I worked on national healthcare reform for many years, it has to be a regional solution minimally versus a state solution, and preferably a national solution. And I know, snicker, snicker, snicker. But my point is, we do actually have quite a regional, amazing region that could address this. So I think it's a cross-state regional conversation.
So, and you're asking a giant question in the context of this budget.
Well,
conversation.
only just
Okay.
like, what does our school district do in that conversation?
Yeah, I want to kick it over to Bram because I know there's a House bill moving right now, 842, which maybe isn't the one, there's so many things moving right now, but a conversation specifically about how to control healthcare costs within our school budgets. And there's probably other items that you want to talk about.
I'm Bram Klepner. I live in Ward 6 and represent Wards 5 and 6 in the state legislature. And so I did serve on Governor Shumlin's Business Advisory Council on Healthcare Financing when we were working on single payer. And I would say we didn't get within reach, but we got within sight. Like the path was visible. And got messed up for a number of reasons. But I think we can absolutely do something on the state level. And there is, I think, a more serious possibility that we will do something around universal primary care this year than in all my years of working on healthcare in Vermont. Because y'all know, we're at full crisis. We are at Blue Cross Blue Shield teetering on insolvency, and 9 of our 14 hospitals losing money. And the earlier observation earlier about the intersection of housing and healthcare and daycare comes crashing in as hospitals can't hire nurses because there's no housing, so they have to hire traveling nurses at exorbitant rates. And the whole thing, another death spiral. It's the theme of the evening. So I don't know. I wouldn't say I'm optimistic because
Death spiral.
been doing this too long, but I do very much hope that we will be able to. And I should say there are reasons for hope. We took a decent chunk of cost out of the system last year by eliminating the hospital's ability to charge exorbitant rates for the drugs that infusion patients were getting, the outpatient and mostly cancer patients. And, we were paying 1,000% of what other states were paying for that. And so we fixed that. I think reference-based pricing will save us tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions. I mean, there are things we can and are doing. And the last thing I will say after having contemplated this for a long time is that, in fact, insurance is not the least bit coherent of a way to pay for health care. That, insurance it's a good model for something that you never want to have happen and that's rare, like your house burning down. Right? Like that's where insurance works. Healthcare is something we all want every year, all the time. And insurance it makes no sense to pay for using that model. So we'll fight and keep fighting and make a little bit of progress and end up with bloody knuckles, but feel okay about it.
Thanks for taking us to lots of things that are connected to each other and also beyond the scope of our limited time this evening.
Yeah, my apologies.
Totally fine. It's welcome. Please continue talking about this, right? Like the point of the public meeting is not to completely encapsulate all of the complexity that exists, but create a way for us to connect about it. Victor, please come join us here or there, wherever you want to be.
Good.
We're gonna shift gears. Thanks, Prop Zero, for your patience, folks. We're gonna have some time for this and then move over to you. The floor is yours.
Sure. Thanks. Hi, I'm Victor Prusak. I live in Ward 6 on the corner of South Winooski and Elm Terrace above Smalley Park. I've worked in the district for about 17 years. Before that, I was a middle school teacher in New York, in Seattle, and rural Northern California. I first came here to help launch the 2 magnet schools. So I've had 4 or 5 different roles over my 17 years, worked with a lot of superintendents. Each superintendent has a different idea of what my job should be. So, yeah. So I'm the director of engagement for the district. That means a lot of things. I've actually connected with some of you when you first started enrolling your students here in the district, or you wanted to transfer schools or wanted to ask questions about different schools, because I also oversee that as well. I also coordinate everything around attendance and chronic absenteeism. And I often am asked by Tom Flanagan, the superintendent, to take on these sort of emergent and urgent projects. And so that's what I'm here to talk about today. Before I go to that, I did look at my pay stub from the end of this school year. The district's cost of having me here, 19% was health insurance. And that's the district's portion. There's like another $9,000 that I was paying. So it's huge. It's a huge crisis. And I agree, Bram, it's healthcare, childcare, housing, like, and they all just work against each other. So, so Jason and I talked a couple times. Jamie sitting over there and I talked. Rebecca, who's the owl on the screen, she and I have been talking about this. Beth, who's on the screen, she's been talking about that with me. So about 3 weeks ago, Tom Flanagan asked me to get together a small group of district folks to come up with a draft procedure for proactive ICE planning, is what we're calling it. And we're really thinking about what happened in Minneapolis, what's happened in Portland, Maine, and to be more prepared should that happen here. We're hoping that doesn't happen here, right? What was the lessons learned out of Minneapolis was, in hindsight, had they been prepared from the beginning, they really could have protected a lot more of their kids and families and supported them in ways that they started to do once they got organized. And so has come up with a draft plan. I've run it past community groups that I work with or we work with. Tom and I met with our teacher advisory group at the high school this afternoon. We met with our student advisory group at the high school a few weeks ago. So we've been gathering feedback from the community. And so this is a great opportunity, actually. Like the timing of this is perfect. The way a procedure works is the superintendent eventually decides on what procedures we want to have. They inform the board. The board doesn't sign up on procedures. The board signs off on policy. The great thing about a procedure is that it doesn't have to be perfect right out the bat. If we want to tweak it, the superintendent can tweak it. We don't have to go through a long process. We don't have to go through 2 board meetings the way we do for changing policies. And so we're close. And our goal is to have it be public end of the first week of March. So after town meeting day, that's our goal. And I think we're close to it. And so what I wanted to just outline were the sort of main buckets that we're covering and talk about, which leads into the way the broader community, any of you who are in this room, if you want to help support students and families in the district, and really the city as a whole, there's a real opportunity for that to happen. We're trying to provide some guidelines for that, but ultimately anyone in the community who's an adult not connected to the school district can do whatever they want to do. Our goal is to do that in a way that protects our kids, keeps them focused on learning, keeps the teachers focused on teaching, and keeps attention, honestly, away from our schools. We're trying really not to draw attention to ICE, and to the president. So what I have, I'm just going to go through these buckets, and then if there's any clarifying questions at all, feel free to ask them. This can morph into the other conversation we want to have. I will stay as long as we need to stay. It's totally fine. Any questions before I read from this? Go for it. It's gonna take like a minute. Give me glasses. Love getting old. So I'm just going to read the summary. The rest I'm not going to read. I'm just going to list the buckets. As part of proactive planning to protect our students and school communities in the event of any federal action in Burlington, we've developed this procedure. While our hope is that we do not need to implement this, it is important to be prepared, be aware of the steps that we may need to implement, and practice some of them ahead of time. Minneapolis Public Schools uses a school-centric model that relies heavily on trained volunteer families to support students and their community. BSD seeks to emulate this model of support. In the event that we need to implement this procedure, direction to do so will begin with the superintendent or their designee. This procedure will go into effect in the event that ICE becomes active in our neighborhoods around our schools, including but not limited to leaving vehicles, patrolling neighborhoods, and or harassing community members. Schools will utilize the structure of each school's safety team to coordinate the implementation of all parts of this approach that sits within schools. Each school will have this in place a few weeks after, I'm just paraphrasing, after the adoption of this procedure. So the buckets are a reminder that we already have a procedure in place that does not allow law enforcement to trespass in our schools, and they need to have a judicial warrant. And we've had that in place since prior to Trump actually coming into office. As soon as the election went towards Trump, we developed that procedure. Our families tell us they feel good about that procedure. Our staff feel that they feel good about it. Our students do. In fact, all of our families who we talk to, and we've met with a range of families from different backgrounds, they feel like the kids are safe in school. That is not what their worry is. Their worry is outside of the school day, before and after school, on weekends. And frankly, they're more afraid for themselves as adults. And that's where they're looking for some support from us. So the buckets are communication, reminding people that regarding immigration status of students, this is protected information, should not be shared under any circumstances. We don't know, we don't assume, we don't share. It's actually not legal to ask when somebody registers for school what their immigration status is. So there's very few of us who know that. And even myself, who processes every single registration, I can make assumptions based on who's registering, but I actually don't know. Time of day, as I said before, during, after school. Transportation is a big one. So transportation includes our school buses. Those are considered extension of a school, so we feel good about those. GMT buses, those receive 60% of their funding is federal funding. They're public buses. Law enforcement can come onto those buses. I've met with GMT to talk about how that would work. Their procedure, which has already been in place, is that the driver has to allow law enforcement onto the bus. They're to immediately call their supervisor, who drives down, meets the bus, contacts BPD, who will contact us, or they'll contact us directly should this happen with students on the bus. Volunteer support, use of whistles. Some of you probably have seen that on the news, what's going on. That has nothing to do with school. This is all community in support of the school. Filming encounters with immigration enforcement. There's some guidelines around that for our staff. We're asking that if they do film an enforcement action happening and any kids are in those photos, that immediately gets sent to the principal, who sends it to the superintendent. Field trips, would we cancel them? What about quick walking field trips, like bringing kids from Integrated Arts Academy over to Roosevelt Park? What about Burlington City and Lake Semester that uses the city as its classroom? What about kids getting on buses for field trips? These are all things that we're needing to struggle with and think about. Safety of our parents and guardians is a huge one. We're thinking about parent-teacher conferences, events that happen in the evenings at schools, those types of things. Would we modify, if a remote option to things, would we cancel certain events if there was a real escalation in ICE activity? Community partners are huge. And then there's a city responsibility piece. So I'm the representative of the district to the mayor's office. And so we're in contact as well, talking about how do we develop these procedures jointly with one another. So those are the buckets of information. As I said, the more detailed procedure should be done in March. Tom and I just talked today. The plan is for him to update the board, if not this Friday, the following week, and then get something out to all of our families via email by the end of the week after town meeting day. Jason and I have talked a little bit about Front Porch Forum. That's sort of still up for discussion. What questions do you have? Sure.
I'd just like to express my deep appreciation for the district taking this so seriously and being so proactive. And it's not a surprise at all. Tom is the best superintendent I've seen in my 17 years here in Burlington by a long shot. But it is fantastic to be in a position of feeling completely comfortable about following the lead of the district in this work. And I imagine there are school districts around the country where that is not necessarily the case. So just a big appreciation for that. It makes a world of difference.
Sure.
Yes.
What sets this off? What is the information that you have, Tom Flanagan has, the school district has, that actually starts this rolling?
It's a good question. And we're still struggling. We don't have a definitive answer for that, right? And because it says like at the discretion of the superintendent or the designee to sort of put this in place. In Minneapolis, they have like a color system of code: green, orange, and red. And we had some conversation in our planning groups around that. And we determined we're not in green, we're in orange now. Like we've had families have members be detained and been deported. We've had families send their kids back to their home country while they've stayed here just because they don't want to have to deal with the idea that one day they as adults would get picked up and then what would happen to their kids. So it isn't green right now. I mean, I can go about my day just fine. It doesn't impact me at all. When we met with our some of our new American families at the high school for a dinner that had already been planned to sort of talk about how can we better support them and their students in the district. I was with a group of families from East African countries, and most of them were citizens. And one elder, a grandfather, spoke up and he said, "I've been here 20 years. I'm a citizen. Why should I have to worry?" I mean, it was a rhetorical question. Why should I have to worry about carrying identification and a passport with me? And so it's really anyone who doesn't present as white is at risk. And that's what we've seen in Minneapolis, right? People get picked up. So what do we think? Well, we're always in contact with the city around this and with BPD. And so if we start seeing a larger presence of ICE vehicles, if we start seeing some of those sort of mass groups of ICE agents going into a neighborhood and trying to get into homes or snatching people up, I think we're all going to feel it. We're all going to know it when it's happening, but there's no perfect answer to that. Yeah.
Go ahead. I'd like to go after you.
I'm curious, you spoke a bit to the need and desire for people who are not associated with the school district to be involved. Can you talk more
Yeah,
about what?
absolutely. Yeah. So that's actually the bigger bucket than everything that I have in front of me here. And so there's a couple parents in the district, as I said, Jamie's helping out with that, who are developing that. I mean, I had some initial conversations with them, gave them the information that I had gathered from other parts of the country. And it's sort of a whole volunteer packet of ways that people can engage. We're looking at having a single point person being a parent or guardian at a school, and then a single point or representative who's on school staff. Those two people will be the ones talking to each other so that
At each school.
So that we at central office or Joe Restaghini, principal at Champlain, is not inundated by people offering to help. So that parent is doing that coordination. It will include some background checking that we can do working with BPD. And that's more if folks are going to help students, for example, get from their homes to the bus stop or from their homes to the school and then back again, that at least the parent on the receiving end feels confident that that's someone they can trust. So we'll be somewhat involved in a matchmaking business, if you would, but we really can't engage in a deep level of support for both practical reasons, which is that we just don't have the staffing to do that, but there's also liability issues involved in that as well. And so some of you probably have done that in your lives or do it now, where you have neighbors and friends who help you with getting kids to and from school and things like that. And so we're just trying to make some of those connections. That's going to be one of the added benefits of this, actually. We think it's going to build community between people who don't normally talk to one another. And so that's why some of our parents who are helping organize this were most interested in getting involved. Was this is a potential to actually build some good that will hopefully continue beyond. Last thing I want to say is we want to practice these things prior to there being an escalation. And that's a real lesson that we learned from Minneapolis, where they were having to make it up as they went.
Victor, thanks for the district's work on this. I just came from the Education Justice Coalition's statewide training, and it was great to see our peers statewide who are doing this work. And a lot of us are networking with each other now. And I think one of the things that I've been struck by at the community level, I live a couple streets away. You know, our family is a part of a community that includes people of many races, religions, different accents. And I have been struck in some of the conversations I've had with European ancestry neighbors that it won't happen here. That friend of our child, he's fine. Even though he's a child of color, he won't have any problems because they're in a protected status. And the level of disconnect, and many folks who are saying, oh, that big stuff nationally, I can't pay attention to it, upsets me. And so I've been thinking as an educator about what are some of the opportunities that we have to start dispelling the mythology, even if you support immigration enforcement. Do you support violent tackling of children? Even if you support immigration enforcement, do you believe that people should not have access to their diabetes medication in their cell? And it goes on and on and on. And so I really want to offer that as some conversations about a reality check of what does it mean to be taken by ICE from Vermont.
Just one brief thought on that. If what happened in Minneapolis and is happening to varying degrees in other places, or happening in any other country, we would call it ethnic cleansing. It's not immigration enforcement. It has nothing to do with immigration. And if we need to call it by its name.
Thank you. Victor, did you want to respond to that, or should we go to the first?
Nope. I don't think Jamie was looking for a response.
I kind of am, in the sense like I would.
Oh, you mean the education level at the school level?
I was even thinking it would be super awesome at the PTO level, frankly.
I would love to have a 10 slide, nothing big, nothing scary, 10 slides that give 10 examples of what does it mean to be physically detained? Where is your body? How did you get detained? How were you treated? What was said to you? And then ask if any one of us in this community wants either one of our children or one of our neighbors treated in that way. And then have another conversation about who is interested in participating in human rights work in Burlington.
I mean, I think that's great. And I think that falls in the lap of the PTOs and the parents in the schools. I don't see that there's a school role in that necessarily, right? I think there can be conversation, but I think the leadership of that really needs to come from families.
I want to go to Rebecca, who's online. You're welcome to come off mute and share.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, I'm Rebecca. I'm actually in Ward 3, and I'm a parent of 2 recent graduates of the district and also an educator. I've worked in a lot of as a teaching artist in a lot of the schools in the district and in early ed centers. I'm pretty connected there. And I just wanted to share that I've been doing some trainings for myself and gathering together some community members to also do trainings. So this is just to in complement to what the district is organizing, and sort of so that we can, as community members, be organizing ourselves, because as Victor said, we don't want to wait until it's too late. Community members don't know who to trust in an emergency if they don't know you already. So just briefly, a couple of things that you can start doing if you're interested in becoming part of a web is just really to get to know your neighbors, have potlucks, go to events, have conversations with your neighbors, and start to, we can all be finding out what we have that we can offer, and what our immigrant community members' needs are. We can be doing that as we stay in communication with the school district and look for other action items. The most important thing for all of us to know is what rights everyone has. The right to remain silent when you're asked a question by an immigration enforcement officer, the right to a lawyer. And so all of this information is available through Migrant Justice. That they're doing a bunch of trainings. You can also find things, resources on their website. And yeah, just get started is what I would encourage people to do. Start asking questions, find people who are interested, and keep in contact with your community.
Thanks, Rebecca. So I think we're waning as a room. Victor, is there a way to contact you or someone else if they want to keep up to date? What do you recommend in terms of? Great.
Jamie's passing around a sign up list, which actually that's the sort of, if you want to help volunteer, if you have questions about stuff in general, definitely reach out to me. My number's on the district website. It's the only phone I carry. You can email me. Happy to have conversations. And I would just reiterate what Rebecca said, which is like, think about the resources actually that are already in the community. Jamie, you came from a training today. Rebecca was talking about training that she went to recently. So there's a lot happening in the community through Migrant Justice, through other organizations. Yeah.
Thanks so much. And thanks everyone for engaging with really scary, important stuff. We're gonna close this part of the conversation. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here. And hand it over to Fareed and Danny also to talk about Prop 0. So you can find your way to a mic.
There's also the general ICE Watch, like neighborhood level, people should sign up for. You ready?
Yeah.
I can do this.
All right.
Did you have a question? Can you say that again?
So there is an ICE Watch list at the neighborhood level that is used to do rapid response if there's like ICE vehicle spotted, and then to communicate that information to people. It's
there after the meeting.
Yeah. So, and also if you know like a family who's not, who's afraid to go outside, like, and they want food delivered, like let us know. I'm a volunteer with the People's Kitchen. We've had to like deliver some food to families of people who were detained, and they're just not willing to leave their homes. So we'll bring them food. Thank you, everybody. My name is Fareed. I live in Five Sisters here in the Ward 5, and I am here to talk about Proposition 0, which is a charter amendment to the Burlington City Charter that will bring direct democracy to Burlington. So in Vermont, there's this long time tradition of town hall style democracy where I don't know if you've ever been to like one of these like smaller town meeting where people actually would bring proposals from the floor and have somebody second it, and then the whole town will get to vote on that proposal. And so what we're talking about is something very similar, although with Burlington's size, we have to scale up the mechanism. But what we're talking about is to allow voters to bring proposals and have it be included as a ballot questions during election to be voted on by the whole town. And so there is the proposal, there's a petition that we're distributing, and our goal is to get this this charter amendment on the ballot for the November election. And so in details, it includes three mechanisms of direct democracy, which Danny will walk you through. What we're looking to add is the ability for voters to get support in the form of petition for any proposals that we want to be put on the ballot. And the state requirements is 5% of the all eligible voters. So for Burlington, that number is around like 1,800, 1,900 voters. And so the Proposition Zero language is in that petition that's being circulated. And also, can we pull up the website on the screen? Okay, yeah, that's good. That's all right. But if you want more info, it's propositionzero.org. And so there are three mechanisms of direct democracy that we're hoping we could have for Burlington. One is the advisory question, then voters initiative, and the last one is a popular referendum. There is a fourth form, which is recall of existing official, which many towns in Vermont have, but that's not what we're talking about here. So Danny will walk you through what these three includes.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Fareed. My name's Daniel. I live in Ward 8 currently, but I also serve on the DPW Commission, so I'm quite familiar with this neighborhood and this conference room here. And one way that I think is helpful to think about Proposition Zero is about correcting an omission in Burlington City Charter. It could be seen as a way to reclaim a form of direct democracy with deep roots, not just in our state's town meetings, but the actual concept of democracy, the people exercising power directly. And Burlington, like all cities as they grow, necessarily need to move away from that to a more representative model. But Proposition Zero is really just a modern, practical tool to restore the true principle of democracy. And Fareed outlined three different powers. They're called the powers of the people, and that will be added as a section of the city charter. So on the reverse of the petition that's being passed around, you'll actually see the full charter language. It's basically just a page, and it outlines these three new powers that will be granted to the people of Burlington through what's called an indirect referendum. So these initiatives are really the heart of the proposal, like Fareed mentioned. If residents gather enough signatures, 5% of the voting populace, they could propose any lawful ordinance. And once this 5% threshold is reached, essentially this language is referred directly to the city council. And at that point, they could have a choice, right? They could accept this proposal as it's written, or they could choose to decline to accept it. And only at that point would it need to go to a direct vote, like we have on our town meeting day ballot today, right? We have the power to approve or decline actions that our representative leaders make through debate and deliberation. And what Proposition Zero is doing is allowing people to do that directly within their communities, actually expanding the power of the people, building these resilient community structures that we need, right, to sustain each other through times that are increasingly less certain, and actually exercising power directly as people, right, organs, right, of this whole organism that is a city. So that's just one of the powers, and it really is the meat of it. But there's essentially two other new powers of the people that Proposition Zero includes. And the other one, which has a long history in the city of Burlington, are advisory questions. And these advisory questions don't always aren't directly related to things going on in the city, but that doesn't have an effect, right? We should still be able to have a voice on them. So Proposition Zero will allow voters to place non-binding questions on the ballot to gauge public sentiment. And same thing, there's this 5% threshold, could basically refer any question to the ballot. And like I said, there's not only local issues, but regional, statewide, national, or international concerns. And there's a long history of these appearing on Burlington ballots, but there's also examples where these have been blocked. People were declined the ability to express their opinion on these really critical issues. So these questions don't actually change the law, but they actually do something really important. They give a formal democratic record of where the people of Burlington stand, and provide guides to elected officials, not just in our city, but in the state and all over the world, where there's news about this, of where people really stand. And that's really something that I think is important, that continues in Burlington, right, and becomes more easy for people to express this, right, and be members of this great public thing that we're doing here. And the NPAs have really been a big part of that. So really, this is all just about making it better, making it easier, and letting people really have a voice on things. So there's a third power, and basically this is where I'm going to leave off, since I recognize that we might be a little bit over time already, and that's referendum. So it's a check on the power of the city council and mayor. And this referendum power will give residents a vote, the power to respond when city council passes an ordinance or resolution that many people believe is harmful or wrong. With enough signatures, voters can force a council to reconsider a resolution. So same thing with 5% of registered voters effectively casting their position. And council then has the ability to reconsider the ordinance. And if the council refuses to repeal the action, the people will have a final say at the ballot box. And altogether, these three methods put a necessary check, ensuring that people have the last word on major decisions. And that is a power that is lacking in Burlington City Charter. But it wasn't designed to be that way. It was basically an omission, because the actual spirit of democracy that has shown its way through over thousands and thousands of years is really what we're trying to restore to this. So I hope we could stay a part of this together. And thank you so much for your time. Yeah.
Yeah, let's do questions, and then we're going to wrap up in just a few minutes, and you're welcome to keep asking questions after we wrap up. But let's take one question from Andy.
I just have two quick questions. One, who would make the determination that a proposed ordinance was legal or not legal? Would that be the city attorney?
It is a city attorney, correct?
Second, my understanding is from the last time around with Proposition Zero, that if we get enough signatures, the city council must put it on the ballot because it's a charter change. Is that correct?
Yes, it's a little different. So what we're talking about, so there are city ordinances. And then there are like charter change. So the charter is something that the state legislature owns. Basically, like they have to approve any changes to it. But it also requires that if there is enough signature for a charter change, then it has to go on the ballot. Whereas what we're trying to do for like the initiative, that process that we're trying to do is like so that voters can propose ordinances directly, which is not available right now to Burlington voters. But it is available to basically every city and every town in Vermont, except for Burlington.
More questions can be asked, but we're going to close the meeting for now. Thank you all for coming to.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Direct your questions here, sign the petition if you didn't get to and you want to, put your name down on the sanctuary school team's email list, come and talk to whoever you've wanted to talk to during the meeting, and we'll see you in March. Thanks.